serving Oregon and southern Washington. This is OPB.
Funding for local broadcast of Nightly Business Report has been provided by viewers like you and by the following. The Collins Foundation. The Collins Foundation is dedicated to improving the quality of life in Oregon. Conkling, Fiscum, and McCormick's Me2You Marketing, providing word-of-mouth marketing services to build, sustain, and measure consumer conversations about your products and services.
In Washington, Ben Bernanke gets hawkish on inflation, sending jitters up and down Wall Street. The Dow plunges almost 200 points, and the Nasdaq tumbles nearly 50 points.
In the oil pits, traders get nervous about new threats from Iran to cut off oil supplies. We'll tell you about the volatile price swings in the crude futures market.
Then, members of Congress travel often as part of their job writing laws and serving the public. But a new report showed many lawmakers are taking business-sponsored fact-finding missions to some of the world's hottest vacation destinations.
This controversial multiple sclerosis drug will soon be back on the market. We'll tell you what government regulators say about Tysabri and how shares of the drug's makers Biogen IDEC and Elon react.
I'm Paul Kangas.
And I'm Susie Garrow. This is Nightly Business Report for Monday, June 5th.
Nightly Business Report is made possible by...
I want to miss you guys.
Congratulations.
Good luck, Gary. Bye-bye, thanks.
Bye, Care Bear.
Wow.
That's nice.
Leaving one job for another?
Hey, Gary.
Don't forget to take your nest egg. Objective financial advice can help you roll over your retirement money. A.G. Edwards, fully invested in our clients.
Franklin Templeton Investments, providing a unique perspective through the specialized investment expertise of Franklin Templeton Mutual Series and Fiduciary Trust. Franklin Templeton Investments, gain from our perspective.
Additional funding provided by the National Association of Realtors. This program was made possible by contributions to your PBS station from viewers like you. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. Ben Bernanke talked tough on inflation today, and investors bailed out of stocks. The Dow tumbled almost 200 points, and the Nasdaq dropped about 50. The sell-off was in reaction to comments by the Federal Reserve Chairman at a conference in Washington. He said recent signs of a pickup in inflation are, quote, unwelcome, and that the Fed will be, quote, vigilant in fighting price pressures. As Stephanie Du reports, Bernanke's comments raised concerns about more interest rate hikes ahead.
Speaking to bankers at an international monetary conference, Fed Chairman Ben Bernanke called the uptick in core inflation a, quote, unwelcome development, and he promised to keep inflation in check.
The best way to prevent increases in energy and commodity prices from leading to persistently higher rates of inflation is by anchoring the public's long-term inflation expectations.
Bernanke noted the slowdown in the economy, but focused on inflation, specifically increasing energy and commodity prices, anecdotal reports of a tight labor market, and surveys showing heightened inflation expectations.
The committee will be vigilant to ensure that the recent pattern of elevated monthly core inflation readings is not sustained.
Economists read that to mean at least one more interest rate hike from the Fed when it meets later this month.
This definitely sends a hawkish view that the Federal Reserve and Mr. Bernanke in particular very committed to keeping the inflation genie in the bottle, and that this Federal Reserve will not let inflation run out of control.
Bernanke took the helm of the Fed from Alan Greenspan on February 1st. Since then, some have worried that he may be an inflation dove, but the chairman showed his hawkish side today.
I don't think the Fed's any more clear than it did today. They talked about vigilance, and when citing recent developments with respect to inflation over the past 3 and 6 month period, described them as very unwelcome. Now, these are the kinds of terms that are chosen very carefully. It's not by accident or in a moment of passion that these kind of words fly out.
Wall Street now believes the Fed will raise the Fed funds rate to 5.25% when it meets later this month. After that, economic reports and speeches like the one the chairman gave today will be closely watched for clues about what the Fed might do next. Stephanie Du, Nightly Business Report, Washington.
Another volatile day for crude prices. Late selling erased most of an early price surge that was fueled by comments from Iran's spiritual leader. He threatened to cut oil output from his country in the face of Western pressure on Iran to abandon its nuclear program. At the New York Mercantile Exchange, July crude futures ended up 27 cents at $72.60 a barrel. Traders attributed the volatility to continued nervousness about tight inventories and the vulnerability of the market to any supply disruption by Iran.
This is just words right now. It's going to, obviously nothing's really going to happen for a while, but it just, we're looking at spare capacity. There's not much spare capacity in the world, maybe 2 million barrels a day spare capacity. So that kind of, sends that, what I said, jitters through the market.
Well, Wall Street opened with a bad case of the jitters as oil prices surged higher on that supply disruption threat from Iran. The broad sell-off in stocks continued throughout the morning, with the Dow dropping 80 points by noontime and the Nasdaq losing about 12. The market went into free fall this afternoon after Fed Chief Bernanke's warnings about a slowing economy and inflation. The Dow Industrial Average plunged 199.15 points, ending at 11,048.72. The Nasdaq Composite tumbled 49.79, or 2.2%, to end at 2169.62. Standard & Poor's 500 down 22.93 at 1265.29. Over in the bond market, the 10-year note fell 8/32 to par and 25/32, putting the yield at 5.03%.
Back now to our top story. Ben Bernanke and the market sell-off. Joining us now with more analysis, Richard Cripps, Chief Market Strategist at Stifel Nicolaus. Hi, Richard.
Good evening.
So what was your reaction to what Ben Bernanke said today?
He didn't give a lot of clarity as to what will happen, and what injected into the market was a lot of uncertainty. Will the Fed tighten one more time or not? And I think that uncertainty is rubbing the emotions raw, the sentiment raw in the marketplace, and it obviously reacted pretty negatively.
It seemed like there was a lot of talk that this now changed the whole scenario of what was going to happen at the June meeting later this month, that the Fed, rather than pausing, most likely will raise interest rates. Was that your takeaway? Was that your interpretation as you were reading between the lines here?
I saw a very balanced statement. I know that what attracted the attention is, of course, the hawkish tone on inflation, but there was also a fair amount discussed about the slowdown in the economy, the signs that they're seeing in terms of the slowing in housing. Some of the other business surveys that are showing are pointing to a slowdown. And then the idea of lags, the idea that monetary policy decisions made today are going to have an impact 6-12 months down the road. And I think the Fed wants to be careful about tightening too much and putting this economy in a slowdown into a recession kind of scenario.
Do you think that this selling that we saw today, which was pretty significant, do you see it continuing tomorrow and through the week?
I think that, again, we have a pretty a sentiment-driven kind of market here. I think that what the market would have, or what I would like to see, is sort of what I call a gully washer. We certainly had a gully washer in terms of the market being down significantly. We'd certainly like to see a little bit more volume to it. So maybe there's another shoe to drop. Cleans out the sentiment, or sentiment gets exhausted, and I think this market begins a stabilization.
So what is your investment approach, given what Bernanke said today and other things going on in the markets?
Well, our view would be that this is, again, a very highly charged, sentiment-driven kind of market. Those are generally good markets in which one should be looking at it opportunistically. Yes, we don't know where the bottom is going to be, but prices are lower than they were 6 weeks ago. So I think in this sort of period, as it's trying to find a bottom, that's generally a good time to be a buyer. So we would lean to the bullish side and be buyers of stocks here over the next, into this volatile, highly charged, sentiment-driven market.
So what are the stocks that you are buying right now?
The most out of favor groups clearly right now are healthcare and stocks in the information technology area. Investors have really, whatever money's in the markets that's been made has been in the materials and energy and precious metals. And I think this group here, if we do get a next leg, up leg in the market, I think we're going to deal with some rotation or investment themes that are different from the ones that got us here. and I think that they will be more beneficial to companies with growth, and that would be areas such as information technology and healthcare.
Do you want to name a few of the stocks, your top 2 or 3 picks at this point?
The real industry leaders are the most out of favor in both of these segments. In the case of information technology, companies like Intel, Applied Materials, Dell Computer look very attractive to us. They're reasonably valued. And again, sentiment on them is very negative. We find that to be an attractive point to be buyers. In the case of healthcare, again, industry leader United Healthcare, which has come under a lot of pressure due to some issue related to corporate governance, WellPoint, Coventry. Those are good names, and we think, again, sentiment is very negative on them. Valuations are very reasonable, and with this market uncertainty, a good time to be a buyer.
Richard, do you own any of these stocks personally, and what's your firm's relationship with them?
I own every one of the stocks that I mentioned in here this evening, and we do not have any investment banking relationship with any of the companies.
Richard, thank you very much for coming on the program.
Thank you.
We've been speaking with Richard Cripps, Chief Market Strategist at Stifel Nicolaus.
A new study finds that over the last 5 years, trade associations, corporations, and foundations spent $50 million to send members of Congress and congressional aides on 23,000 trips. During that time, lawmakers took 200 fully paid trips to Paris and over 100 trips to Italy and Hawaii. Congressional aides accounted for 3/4 of that travel, but as Darren Gersh reports, lawmakers made most of the big-ticket trips.
Most everyone agrees members of Congress and their aides need to travel to gather facts and learn how legislation affects lives beyond the Capitol Beltway. But a new report shows many lawmakers like to get their education in places like Paris, Las Vegas, and Hawaii.
Often, the travel was passed off as work when the trips actually amounted to little more than pricey jaunts, often with a spouse, friend, or other relative traveling for free to some of the world's most exotic vacation destinations.
Topping the list of businesses sponsoring congressional travel is the Nuclear Energy Institute, with more than $1 million spent between 2000 and 2005 on more than 300 trips. The Association of American Railroads and the cable TV industry tied for second, spending $450,000 each. A closer look at the record shows just how expensive some trips can be. The Nuclear Energy Institute spent more than $35,000, flying now House Majority Leader John Boehner and his wife on 2 trips to tour nuclear facilities in France and Spain. Democrat Ed Pastor and his wife followed a similar itinerary at a cost of close to $40,000. Critics say there are plenty of nuclear power plants to visit right here in the United States.
This is just another way for special interests to gain access and the private ear of someone who is an influential member of Congress.
Representative Pastor tells Nightly Business Report he visited France to learn about nuclear recycling as an alternative to the Yucca Mountain storage site the nuclear power industry favors. A spokesman for Representative Boehner says all his travel was done with full disclosure and prior approval, and the facts show the industry received no special treatment. The Nuclear Energy Institute defends its travel program, adding the technology in Europe is not available in the United States.
It is our money. It's not taxpayer dollars. If and when congressional ethics rules change, we'll abide by whatever changes are put in place.
The House of Representatives has put a temporary suspension on business-backed travel, but it appears the push for tougher reforms has been derailed.
It looks to me as if they will eventually pass something before the election, but it will be so anemic, so inconsequential as to not make any difference.
Congress is likely to put in place new rules allowing members to pre-certify their travel with the Ethics Committee to make sure the trip is not funded by lobbyists. Meanwhile, the House of Representatives' voluntary travel ban expires next year. Darren Gersh, Nightly Business Report, Washington.
There's a major deal in the North American REIT market tonight. Real estate investment trust Trizec Properties says Brookfield Properties and private equity firm the Blackstone Group are buying Trizec Properties and Trizec Canada for almost $9 billion. The all-cash deal nearly doubles Toronto-based Brookfield's size by adding Trizec's 61 office properties in North America to Brookfield's 67 commercial properties. The boards of both Trizec and Brookfield have approved the deal. And Paul, it's expected to close by the end of the year.
Well, Susie, Trizec shares were among the big board's most active today. We'll see them in a moment as we take a look at our stocks in the news tonight. Most active New York Exchange issue on 17.2 million shares. Lucent Technologies losing 2 cents. Then Pfizer with a 25-cent drop. Elan Corp down $2.46, even though the FDA approved the return of the company's multiple sclerosis drug called Tysabri to market. It was suspended about a year ago on safety concerns. The return, however, comes with many new restrictions that could limit its sales, and I think that's what hurt the stock and the stock of Elan's partner, Biogen IDAC, which was down $2.32 a share. Time Warner, an 8-cent loss, and there you see Trizec Properties up $4.08. That deal from Brookfield and Blackstone is worth $29.01 per share. Then we see General Electric down 44 cents. Same case with Commerce Bancorp, even though Commerce Bancorp today after the close was added to the Standard & Poor's 500 index, replacing Engelhard Corp. ExxonMobil down $1.60, and then Texas Instruments 90-cent drop. Ford Motor fell 15 cents. Disney was the only gainer in the Dow 30 index, up 12 cents. Let's have a look at some of the bigger losers in the Dow 30. Caterpillar, 3M, Boeing, United Tech, and Altria Group, all with significant losses today. Standard Pacific had a significant loss of $2.57. The company's new home orders for the first 2 months of the second quarter down about 41%. A.G. Edwards downgraded the stock from buy to hold, and that had an impact on the whole housing sector today. Here are some stocks in the group: Beazer, Centex, Lennar, Pulte, and Ryland Group, all on the downside significantly. Freeport McMoran Copper and Gold off $4.83. The company's Indonesian unit expects second quarter copper sales to fall 16% below its first estimate. Newmont Mining, interesting, with a loss of 72 cents, even though gold, the August contract in New York, up $7.70 an ounce, and Citigroup upgraded Newmont from hold to buy, yet the stock down a bit. Administaff up $1.21. CS First Boston upgraded it from neutral to outperform on a price basis. And then Medicus Pharmaceutical losing $2.56 after the FDA approved Allergan's Juvederm wrinkles treatment, which will now compete with Medicus' Restylane wrinkle product. And Allergan stock was up 19 cents, incidentally. Big on the downside, WH Energy Services, the oil field services firm, downgraded by Deutsche Bank from buy to a hold on a price basis. Google topped the active list on NASDAQ, down $5. Microsoft, 26-cent drop. Apple Computer losing $1.66, 25-cent loss. And Intel, SanDisk off $1.01, and continuing this blizzard of minus signs. Cisco off 56 cents. Amgen lost $1.70. Yahoo off 70. Qualcomm, $1.32 drop, and 10th in volume. Comcast A losing 91 cents. But a gainer, LaserScope up $9.24. American Medical Systems will acquire the company for $31 a share in cash. And another gainer, First Bank of Northwest up $3.57. Sterling Financial will acquire it for cash and stock worth almost $26 a share. On the downside, however, Onyx Pharmaceutical losing $3. Late-stage trials of the company's kidney cancer treatment called Nexavar have failed to improve survival rates. And those are the stocks in the news tonight. Susie?
Paul, Indian companies made over 100 overseas acquisitions last year worth almost $4.5 billion. As Smita Prakash reports from New Delhi, the deals demonstrate India's growing appetite for a place in the global marketplace.
The overseas shopping spree by the once insular corporate India is the result of aggressive restructuring that Indian companies have undergone in recent years. Post-liberalization in the 1990s, Indian companies have become more professional and efficient, but some still lack the expertise for overseas marketing and distribution. The solution they've hit upon is to buy foreign firms with significant distribution outreach.
One is to secure your supply chain, which is essentially your raw materials or any other products that are the building blocks for your products. The second is to secure customer access. The third is actually to ensure that you can cost effectively transfer production out here. And the fourth, sometimes, as I said, is to acquire brand names or to acquire research bases abroad.
The major acquisitions by Indian companies is also fueling the country's booming economy. India's current GDP is cruising at 8% per year and is expected to touch the 10% mark in another 2 years. Leading Indian businesses like Wipro in the IT area and Videocon in consumer electronics are buying companies all over the world.
Two things have happened. One is, yes, government's unfreezing of the so-called Foreign Exchange Regulation Act. And secondly, the internal desire or aspirations of companies in India to go global. Both of these has prompted, and I think when one has seen that it is not so difficult to acquire companies overseas, and that financing is available, that there is encouragement from a shareholder valuation point of view. So people, and there's access to market.
Deals are being notched up in sectors like pharmaceuticals and auto components. Indian hotel companies have bought dozens of hotels in the UK, Africa, and even in the United States. India is raising its global corporate profile as a result of the $140 billion reserves it holds. Indian companies see overseas acquisitions as the next step towards a global presence.
In the last 5 years, it has realized that it has got that muscle, it has got this strength, and then global arena is opening up. So it is a natural progression that is taking place.
For now, Indian companies' overseas strategy involves small purchases. But with both a growing economy and ambition, major international buyouts are simply waiting to happen. Smita Prakash, Nightly Business Report, New Delhi.
Tomorrow, are international mutual funds ready for another look? We'll get some answers in our monthly mutual fund report.
Here's a look at what's happening tomorrow. President Bush heads to New Mexico to talk about immigration reform. Also tomorrow, weekly retail sales and earnings from Korn Ferry International, Lazy Boy, and Ryanair Holdings. Well, as we saw today, Fed Chairman Ben Bernanke means what he says and says what he means. Here's tonight's commentator, Alan Blinder, partner in the Promontory Financial Group and former vice chair of the Federal Reserve.
About a month ago, an off-the-cuff remark by Chairman Ben Bernanke set off a major flap over Federal Reserve communications. Bernanke told a reporter that his April 27th congressional testimony had been misunderstood, but he later apologized for his, quote, lapse of judgment in saying so. Critics complained that the allegedly transparent Bernanke was just as confusing as his predecessor, Alan Greenspan. But this complaint, like the market's reaction to the testimony, missed the point. Bernanke was speaking clearly. It's just that the markets were not hearing him. The problem, I believe, is that traders are used to hearing the unique dialect known as greenspeak, which must be deciphered like hieroglyphics. With Bernanke in command, the markets need a new Rosetta Stone. So let me provide it with help from Dr. Zeus. Remember Horton, the elephant who hatched the egg? He meant what he said, and he said what he meant. So does Bernanke. For example, here's what he said in that now famous testimony. At some point in the future, the committee may decide to take no action at one or more meetings in the interest of allowing more time to receive information relevant to the outlook. And that's just what he meant. Did you hear an implied promise to pause in June? Somehow many traders did. I'm afraid we're now in an awkward adjustment period as the markets learn that the new Fed chairman speaks English, not Greenspeak. It will help the adjustment go faster if we all remember Horton. I'm Alan Blinder.
Recapping today's market action, tough talk from the Fed chairman tanks stocks. The Dow dropped almost 200 points, while the Nasdaq lost about 50 points. To learn more about the stories in tonight's broadcast, go to Nightly Business Report on PBS.org.
And that's Nightly Business Report for Monday, June 5th. I'm Susie Garib. Good night, everyone. Good night to you, Paul.
Good night, Susie. I'm Paul Kangas, wishing all of you the best of goodbyes.
Nightly Business Report is made possible by
Franklin Templeton Investments. Our unique perspective helps us see domestic and international markets in a different light. Franklin Templeton Investments. Gain from our perspective.
Buying or selling a home is a big financial decision. A realtor can guide you through the process and help you reach your goals. Is your agent a realtor, a member of the National Association of Realtors?
And by A.G. Edwards.
This program was made possible by contributions to your PBS station from viewers like you. Thank you.
Stay with OPB. The News Hour with Jim Lehrer is next.
For more information about investing, you may order Nightly Business Report's home video, The NBR Guide to Buying Bonds. This program is available in either the VHS or DVD formats.
We are PBS.
Funding for local broadcast of Nightly Business Report has been provided by viewers like you and by the following. The Collins Foundation. The Collins Foundation is dedicated to improving the quality of life in Oregon. Conkling, Fiscum, and McCormick's Me2You Marketing, providing word-of-mouth marketing services to build, sustain, and measure consumer conversations about your products and services.
The legends of 1950s and early 60s pop return to the PBS stage in an all-new My Music special.
To spend one night with you in our old rendezvous. Hey, go party.
Join us tonight at 8 here on OPB.
Look at that face. Just
that
look
face, that voice.
It's a picture.
Join us for Classic Streisand.